Welcome everyone to the Healthy Love online show. I'm your host, Anastasia Frank, and I am over the moon to be here with you today with our very special guests, Doctors Gay Hendricks and Kathleen Hendricks. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Anastasia.
Yes, thank you so much. And so for any of you who don't know about their work, and by the way, Kathleen goes by Katie, so that is who we're talking about. Gay and Katie are pioneers in the field of body intelligence and relationship transformation for more than 40 years. So you are looking at the face of the pioneers of healthy love right now. So take that in. And
yep, we came across on the Mayflower, just yes. The two of us, populated an entire nation.
And we are so grateful for that. Thank you for doing that. Together and on their own, they have authored more than 40 books, including My Beloved Conscious Loving and The Big Leap, and so many other books that you're going to run out after this and buy if you don't have them. They have also been on, oh my gosh, over 500 television shows and radio programs, including Oprah and 48 Hours and others, and you're going to learn all about them, and you can learn more at hendricks.com, HENDRICKS.com, and we'll have more on that later. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to give viewers a little insight into why you're here today, in my own calling in the one journey before I had my husband, I had no clue what healthy love looked like. So people would ask for an intention around love to be set, and I didn't know what it looked like. And so many people watching the show I know have the same question in their hearts of, if I've never seen healthy love, how can I set an intention around it? So what I am delighted and looking forward to is having you share what I consider to be the most comprehensive lens on what is healthy love, how do we create that, what are the things that get in the way, and so forth. Does that work?
Well, that's a great context, and that's basically all we ever talk about. And that's, that's our lives. So there's really no difference between when we're working or when we're at home. This is really our passion.
Yes.
Well, to get right to the heart of the matter, first of all, I don't always sound like this. I have a little bout with some allergies going on that's got my head stuffy. But to get to the heart of the matter, almost everyone has had an experience somewhere in their life of feeling love or feeling loved. Like, for example, I like people to, just take a moment and think of somebody they know for sure they love. Or if it's not somebody, it could be something that you know for sure that you love. Maybe a long time ago, you were walking along at the beach on sunset, and you thought, this is where I want to be. That kind of, I want to be here in this place kind of feeling. Almost everybody's had an experience of that. And so what we like people to do is to first give themselves that kind of love. Because one thing we've found out for sure in our journey together is that you can only get the amount of love from the world that you're willing to give to it. It's complete equality right down the line. And so if there's any place you haven't learned to love yourself, then that'll come up in relationships. And so that's why it's so important to start by giving yourself that 1/10 of a second or 10 seconds of unconditional love to make the base happen, to be the base of that.
Yes, gorgeous. And oh my gosh, I'm realizing as you say that, a whole call could be devoted to that topic alone, which perhaps it should be. But I'm feeling this bubbling thought in me as you say that, which is so often, so many of us don't even realize that we don't know that we're not giving that to ourselves until we actually are in a partnership and we start seeing a lack of that love in our partner, etc. So, I'm just realizing that that's one of the places where we learn where we're not loving ourselves at times.
Yeah, the mirror of relationship, that's really been such an avenue for discovery and an ongoing learning. And really one of the big commitments that we made that's made a really big difference for us is being willing to learn, being willing to continue discovering from what is going on in our interaction, that sense of wonder and curiosity rather than what's really popular in relationships, which is being right. You know, if I can just be right, you know, that sense of solidity that I get from being right, we think that substitutes for the sense of actually being able to give and receive love. But that's really where the nourishment comes, and it comes from being willing to both receive. To most of us put a limit on how much love we're actually willing to receive, and we bounce it off again through arguments and power struggles and conflict. But that whole exchange of, I'm willing to learn how to love myself even more while I'm loving you even more, so that expanding our capacity every day is one of our key principles of being willing to expand the capacity to give and receive more love every day. That's kind of the central thing.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that topic, right? So we're in this conversation of expanding for more love from ourselves and love from a beloved, from everyone, from life.
Really from it. Yes.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I would love to just kind of get a little x-ray into the amazing foundation and architecture that is your love. And full disclosure, you guys were on my altar the whole time I was calling it my husband.
Wow.
There was your picture. So I want everyone to know, like, pay attention to how they speak. This is the transmission right in front of you. So, you know, I know in Conscious Loving you have the 6 co-commitments that are required to enter what you called conscious loving. I know some viewers don't know what those are. Would you mind sharing briefly, like, what those foundational commitments are?
Sure. Yeah, they and all of these things really came out of our curiosity and our intention to create love that continues expanding, continues growing, while we, Gay's going to go get the book, while we continue committing to practices that we can actually do. So
yes,
one of the keys that we noticed right away was what we call the commitment to being close.
Yes.
So most people don't realize that to actually commit to being close gives you a much better chance of creating that and to clearing up any obstacles in the way of getting close. And then the second commitment that goes with that is to commit to your own individual development, your own creative development. So the really thriving relationships have what we call the relationship dance, periods of getting close and experiencing unity, and periods of being in your own direct relationship with the universe and getting your juice directly from the universe and then being able to share that with each other. So those are really the 2 cornerstones.
The 2 foundation commitments, the one to getting close and the one to being a separate individual, because both of those things have to be right there for the person to feel whole in a relationship. A third commitment was that we made a commitment to revealing ourselves rather than concealing ourselves.
Yeah.
And this led us on lots of television shows where we would be asked, are you people suggesting that couples should be honest with each other all the time? And, so we got asked that about 16,000 times. But yes, we found that absolute honesty was the only way to have an absolute intimate relationship, because if you're holding back on anything where you're not trusting to tell the other person about it, there's some kind of glitch in the relationship. And so that became one of the important commitments.
And I want to say a little bit more about that, because I found that being able to describe what is going on for me. Most people have a mistaken sense of what telling the truth is, like there's the truth out there, whereas what we've discovered is that authenticity is really being able to notice what's actually real for you. What are you actually experiencing? And then being able to say that to the other in a way that's not decorated or doesn't have kinks in it. And what that does is open up more flow. It opens up more juiciness, more creativity, more sexual enjoyment, more aliveness, more co-creativity. So it's really a key. But we didn't find that out by just asserting that. We found that out by experiencing what happened when we revealed as opposed to what happened when one of us concealed.
Beautiful. Do you have go ahead. I can see you want to say something, Gay.
Yes, well, the reason that's so controversial, I think, is because Katie touched on something that when you reveal yourself, when you speak the truth, it opens you up to a direct connection with the universe and the creativity that is at the heart of the universe. Wow. And so if you think about it, another one of our commitments too has to do with this issue of where reality is sourced, because so many people in relationships, the moment the pressure's on, a problem occurs, they retreat to the victim position and blame the other person. And so it's the retreat and blame kind of thing. And so we learned that blame is one of the main destroyers of intimacy and relationship. And so we decided to eliminate blame from our relationship. And we found out it could only be done if both of us took a degree of personal responsibility that was 100%. And so when a problem would occur, we found the only way through it is if I said, okay, let me look at how I contribute to that problem.
And then I would, I wonder how what am I doing that is creating this? And then both of us taking full responsibility rather than fighting over, I've done my part and you got to do your part. And that whole thing just kept the power struggle going. But the stepping into 100% responsibility was really a key. And I think it's a key to not just personal relationships, but communities and global relationships for people to really go, with curiosity, not with blame of yourself, but to go, I wonder how I am, what I'm doing and what I might do differently that would create a different result.
I loved that comment that you made with Neil Satin during your interview with Relationship Alive, that the most important question we can ask is, I wonder how I might have contributed to this, or what might I be able to learn, rather than going, what is wrong with you that made this happen?
Yeah, once you start looking for what is wrong with that person over there, it's endless. Another thing too is we found an important commitment is each person needs to be committed to the empowerment of other people around you, because if you're committed to your own empowerment but nobody else is, well, we see a lot of examples of that in the world today.
Right.
But when I'm fully committed to Katie, as well as being fully committed to my own personal evolution, then some real magic opens up, because then two people operating together in harmony is way more than two people. It opens up a whole other dynamic.
Oh yeah. Hence all the books, right? All of the books have come out of that space of creativity.
And it's also one of the things that I first admired and still admire about you, which is your sense of generosity and of wanting everybody to be able to participate, anybody who's willing. So you're co-creating and you're empowering of others, your empowerment of women all these decades, and you're co-authoring books with people, including me, but lots of other people, that you want everybody to be able to succeed, rather than the kind of scarcity that so many people come from, like there's only so much and I got to hold on to it because then otherwise it's going to leak out. And what that does is just shut down the energy hose so that you get to enjoy less and less and less, rather than letting that flow through, because the source is infinite.
Yes, I love that. And I think you're speaking to what you said earlier about how do we stand as ourselves while in this co-creative union.
Yes.
And I can really see how that commitment to each other's empowerment, along with being fully responsible to yourselves, is kind of at the heart of that exchange. Like,
yes, it really is.
Okay.
Yeah. And also I want to mention one of our first commitments that people questioned, because we said, we commit to having a good time.
I love that one.
We commit to having a good time. And people were, wait a minute, you're in a relationship. What do you mean? It's about compromise and hard work, and you have to settle for less. And we have found that to be absolutely untrue.
Yes.
That you can, in fact, the only way to learn is when you're having a good time. Because we know now, and science really supports everything that we talked about in conscious loving, which is really great, that we only learn something new when we're actually in enjoyment, when we're having a good time. When we're in stress, we recycle old patterns. And so the more that we try to force our partner to change, the less that's going to work. Or the more we blame ourselves, the less that's going to work.
Absolutely.
I was just... when I got out Conscious Loving, I realized that I believe it was 27 years ago, right this time of the month, when we first flew out to be on Oprah with this.
Oh!
I think you're right. It was 19 or 91.
Yeah, I think it was 91,
like
yes.
So it's an anniversary edition.
Yes.
With the additional benefits of what you guys have learned since then, and I think it speaks to where we are collectively, right? That many people do know of you, thank goodness, and your work, but some people still will say, I have no idea what my intention for love is because I've never seen anything.
Yes.
So I love that that's the case, that it's the 27th anniversary and here we are correcting these fear-based models. So
yes.
What a privilege to bring this forward.
Yeah, thank you, Anastasia. And before we go on to something just popped into my mind that we discovered about committing, is that committing allows you to get into the game. So get off of the bleachers and into the game, which is where all the fun is to be had.
Yes.
And then when people make a commitment, almost immediately there's going to be a challenge to that commitment, a little pop quiz from the universe about, are you really committed to revealing rather than concealing? And so particularly with that one, I withheld particularly anger. And I actually didn't even notice the signals that I was angry for a long time. But what I found was that when I slipped off of my commitment, blaming myself and feeling bad just slowed things down. What really worked was simply recommitting. So I recommit to revealing rather than concealing. And then I would say something that was true. So I would make good on that commitment. So we found that committing and recommitting really will take you where you want to go. Committing is a place to come home to. It's also a place to steer your relationship, but recommitting gets you back on the path again. And so it doesn't do any good to, to feel bad and
beat yourself up.
Yeah. But simply to recommit and then get back in and make good on your commitment.
I love that. So that's permission to all of us to be human and to acknowledge that we're not going to read a book or see these beautiful people and just know it, but it's a practice.
Right.
Yeah, all done. We will not be talking about this in 27 years because it's all fixed.
Right. And I think many of us have a perfectionist persona.
Yes.
And see, any kind of deviation from perfection as being a failure. And what we really found is that weaving of where I am and where I want to go is never a straight line.
Yes.
But that if you do recommit, it will take you to where you want to go in a really friendly way.
Yes. And so some of these commitments, just to be totally clear, are everything you've just been talking about, like committing to being close again, if that's fallen apart, committing to having fun again, like letting yourself acknowledge, oh, and maybe even share, I can see that I've slipped a bit.
Yeah.
Like, are we still in the same boat? Do we still want this
Right.
close love, etc.?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true also for clients. So when you're working with someone and then they hit a wall or an impasse, rather than, lamenting that or thinking we have to, quit communicating together, just simply look at, okay, are you still interested? Do you recommit? Is this something that you still want? And I remember many conversations where we go, okay, is this what we still want? And then we come to, yeah, this is what we still want. And then we recommit to that. And what happened over years is that we've completely eliminated blame and criticism from our world. We have had no blame and criticism in our household in this century, which I like to be able to say.
That is so amazing. So no blame and no criticism, right? Which is basically no fighting, like no, or go ahead, Gay.
Yeah, well, for most people, fighting is about a race to occupy the victim position.
Wow.
And so you try to stake out the victim position. Hey, I'm the victim here.
No,
you're the perpetrator. And then the other person says, wait a minute, I'm not the perpetrator here. You're the perpetrator. And that goes on for the next 42 years until they both die. But what happens is, if you suddenly realize, wait a minute, there's no victims and villains here. There's just interlocking old programming that gets together, where one person's need for approval hooks into another person's need to dominate. And, it goes around and around like that. And so the only way through these things, as we mentioned, is to claim responsibility for them and step out of that victim position. And once you do that, all sorts of wonderful things are possible. Lots of creativity happens because you're not using your energy to duke it out for the victim position.
Yes. So you've hit on two things I wanted us to definitely cover right there, which is, once you've let go of the blame and the, criticism, I was hoping that you guys could share what does that look like? So what does it look like?
What do we do all day?
Are you just smiling at each other? Like what actually happens when someone's wounds get triggered, especially maybe at the beginning, maybe it's less relevant, but I'd love to just know. So from a conscious loving perspective, when we are triggered and my need for closeness conflicts with your need for independence in this moment, how do we lovingly come back together?
Yeah, it's a great question, Anastasia. I really appreciate that. One thing I wanted to mention is that most relationships are fueled by adrenaline, and that's that ha being right comes from blaming, comes from criticizing, and it gives you that sense of energy. You think that's energy, but adrenaline has a very short half-life. You get that peak of ha, and then it fades away. And so what people do then is escalate. They escalate the blame. They escalate the criticism. They escalate that it's your fault. No, it's your fault. So that's the main issue. And all of that, I really think, is run by fear.
Wow.
The fear of, getting close, the fear of being smothered, the fear of being on my own, some central fears that most of us have. And that when you're not blaming and criticizing, you can actually give your attention to your presence to what are you experiencing. You can be with each other without those barriers of adrenaline and fear, and that nutrient of attention, of being able to give each other your free attention. That's what I think people are most longing for, to be able to feel and be impacted by that loving attention. Humans need that as much as we need attention, as much as we need food and water. So we can't get it in a straightforward way. We learn how to get attention through patterns of, playing victim or trying to be perfect or controlling the other. Those things we learn, but at the base of it is that if you could agree with each other that you're willing to give and receive attention.
Yes.
That really goes a long way, because attention is love. We get, those two really come together.
And that might happen, for example, in a triggered state, right? Like, I'm imagining, I can remember when I read your book, and this idea of reporting a micro truth on what I was experiencing was new to me, like tentatively going to my partner and saying, Eric, when you left last night without telling me where you were going, a part of me felt very abandoned and alone. Mm-hmm. And I have historically been raised in a household where not only did my feelings not matter, but you would never share them if you were conscious of what they were. So this was breaking two of the biggest blocks ever. And then to watch him respond and go, oh my God, that was not my intention. I just needed some space, and we could find a more loving way to resolve that, was directly out of your work. And I just want to acknowledge that can be scary to many people watching.
You bet. Yeah.
So the advice, go ahead.
One of the things that we suggest to people when you're first starting is to start very simply with sharing something that couldn't be argued about, like a body sensation. When you left last night without telling me, the first thing I noticed is my cheeks got really hot. And I could feel some tears welling up. And that is, one, it's unarguable. Mm-hmm. So it tends to not create the pushback. And it also creates presence for the speaker, for you or for me. If I say that, then I'm in myself, enjoying my own experience of aliveness, and then I can share myself from a sense of my wholeness rather than from sense of lack.
Even if it's a difficult feeling that you're describing, that can feel alive, and it does. Like, I was flushed, or...
Well, there are three big emotions that come up that cause people trouble in a relationship. Okay. One is anger. A lot of people have trouble getting it out their throat, just saying, I'm angry. Some people have trouble saying, I'm sad. Some people have trouble saying, I'm scared. But if you get underneath all those are a bunch of sensations. Mm-hmm. So if you get underneath that and say, my belly feels tight right now, that's a fear thing. So it helps ground you in your body so that you're not always escaping your body, but you're finding your solace down in your body.
Wow. And thank you for presencing that, Gay, because one of the things that I've noticed comes up a lot with, especially like the very like bright clients that are super intellectual and have figured everything out. It can be hard. And I put myself in that camp, where you're rewarded for what your brain does. Yeah. I could not name a sensation. So when I first read that, I'm like, okay, great. Step 3, feel your feelings. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah. So that's where we started too. That's where I started.
Okay. So I'm hearing that just pausing to maybe go, what is an objective truth about my body?
What is the thing that can't be argued about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if I say to you, Anastasia, you're responsible for all my misery I'm feeling in my body. That's arguable, and you're likely to say, wait a minute. You were miserable before I met you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so the map from here, where most people think, and most people live from their neck up. Yes. So this journey of loving is really an embodied. It's about becoming awake and aware in your body, because that's where all the joy is. That's where all of the aliveness is. And asking the question of, how am I experiencing this in my body right now? Has been a really valuable one. And even if you don't get an answer, what you're doing is going from here to here with curiosity, like, you mean when I'm thinking this, my body is doing something? No, so if I'm thinking it's your fault, my body, oh, my shoulders get tight when I do that. So that kind of connection really allows each of us to experience more of being alive in the moment and more of sourcing our own aliveness and our own creativity rather than trying to live. It's like trying to eating just the rind of a grapefruit rather than eating the whole grapefruit. So the juiciness is in our bodies. It's not up here in our thinking.
In fact, your conscious life really begins with a 12-inch journey from here down to here, and then everything opens up from there when you get your heart and your mind working together.
Wow. I love, oh my gosh, I could just bask in that thought for the next 30 minutes. It's so profoundly true. So just for the sake of time, it's like, okay, so let's just say that we've mastered our bodies. We're aware of what we're feeling. And, could you just say one sentence or two on, let's just say I've noticed I get tense and nauseous and my throat constricts whenever I feel that someone has betrayed me, which is my story, my thing I'm bringing. Where do we go from there? Like, obviously that's mine, I need to heal. So where do you advise, like, we've grown the capacity to feel. What do we do as we start to see, oh God, this is like when Dad would leave the house.
Right.
How do I start to awaken that inside our conscious container?
One thing you need to do is reflect on it yourself and discuss it with other people.
Okay.
We tell our students that if there's anything that you're not willing to get on the microphone and say to the crowd in Yankee Stadium, that's got a grip on you. So we need to go public with the things that we think can only be held private. And
Wow.
So if you've got some old wound, it needs to be aired out. We've all been there. And so a lot of people, though, hold themselves in such check and don't open those things up that need to be aired out. Mm-hmm. And so the journey, like I said, of conscious living really has to begin with a gate opening, this mm-hmm. gate of, here's who I am. Mm-hmm. This is me. And from then on, thousands of things can happen through that gate, but that gate has to be opened yourself. You can't, nobody else can open it for you.
Absolutely. And it's as you're saying that, I'm resonating in my whole body how, some people are ready to hear that from you, right? And so for the single people who are watching, what we're looking for as we begin to master this, because you can be single practicing this or in relationship practicing this, we're also looking for someone who responds. I think what I'm hearing is like with curiosity and encouragement inside of those co-commitments. Like if you share, I'm terribly afraid of abandonment, and that moment yesterday triggered all of my deepest fears about being left. And I know that wasn't intentional, but that's what's going on for me. We want someone to be like, oh, wow, right? Or, just for people who have never had conscious love, can you describe how someone should, what a loving way to respond is when someone has bared their soul to you in that way?
Sure.
First, thank them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that with me. I feel touched that you feel open enough to share this with me. And we find very simple things will allow that bridge of being with and befriending an experience. So, for example, oh, tell me more. Mm-hmm. Or how is that for you? Mm-hmm. The sense of just bringing some curiosity and being with. Or then what happened? Or what interests you most about that? These very simple things that let the other person know I'm here and I'm receiving and I'm interested. Because people don't want to be fixed. I mean, hardly anybody, they may think they do, but generally people want to go like, I can do this. Yeah. I can find my solution, and I'd like you to simply be with me. So rather than if I say I'm tired, I can remember back in the old days, Gay would say, well, why don't you do some breathing? Or why don't you do, so he would come in to fix me. And then there was this one day where I said, I just simply want you to hear me. And
I don't need fixing.
I don't need fixing.
Oh, I said, well,
oh, wow.
What am I supposed to do with my Mr. Fix-It persona?
Right.
That's a new challenge. What do I do here?
So one of the things we suggest is give that persona a better job.
Okay.
So there are lots of things that need fixing. And so use your fix-it persona to address that. But there's a whole other thing that we've found that makes such a big difference in relationship is that our interactions are really an opportunity to give and receive love that we really call play. It's really like tossing a ball back and forth. And I remember when we first started tossing feelings and conversations, Gay would toss something to me and I literally would, the ball would go thunk and drop. I could get like, and wouldn't know how to respond, but I just hung in there, like learning how to then receive the toss, like, oh, I hear that you're feeling tired. And then toss that back. And as the whole intention to keep the game going with each other and to invent new games, new ways of interacting rather than the same old things that we've learned about blame and control and who gets to be right and who gets to be in charge. Such boring old games, the new games of what do you really want and how can I support you in creating what you really want and what do we want together and how can both of us have what we really want even though it may look like we want completely different things.
Wow.
And we found that by continuing to listen to each other and ask what you really want, we would find some new solution rather than one of us having to be wrong and the other one getting to be right.
Wow. That is like a whole conversation. I just, I'll have to, like buzzing with you guys on that topic because that's an art form, right? If we have these conflicting desires, how do we, engage them? But it sounds like just with love and curiosity and creativity, letting like an answer that isn't known appear.
Yes. And also, as you're mentioning that, I want to let listeners know, viewers know that we've created 2 trainings that address these areas that we're talking about. In the summer, we have a 5-day conscious loving advanced training where we've pulled together everything that we've learned since 1980 about how to create successful relationships.
Wow.
Both romantic, but also any kind of close relationship, business and otherwise. And then in the winter, we have a 5-day body intelligence advanced training. And that really speaks to this whole journey that Gay was mentioning of going from here into whole body learning and whole body intelligence and using our natural resources of breathing and moving and communicating so that those can be part of our toolbox rather than something that holds us back.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. And I will include information on both of those below this video so people can find out more.
Great.
That sounds amazing. I want to come. So just before we just go into closing, I just wanted to bring up one other idea that feels so central to your work, and that is this expression of creativity in the field in place of when we stop the blame and the criticism. What's left in all of your work is this field of creativity. That's what I'm so in love with in your work. And so I know, Gay, in The Big Leap and in other works, you've talked about like the zone of genius and how much value comes when we can lean into that space. Would you mind sharing why is that important, especially in a conversation about healthy love, that we occupy that space?
Yes, it's important in relationship for both people to tap into their own individual creativity as well as creativity in the relationship, because especially as you get older, once you get up 40, 50, 60, we say that every breath you take is a choice between creativity or stagnation. And it's really important in relationships to keep rejuvenating yourself and being a different person, you know, and learning new things, because that's exciting, and that will create that kind of ricochet back and forth of both people learning and growing all at the same time.
And variety.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I also think at a deeper, even a deeper level in ourselves, it's essential to our well-being every moment to open up a conversation with your creative genius. Because at the end of the day, you know, at the end of your life, you're not going to be asking yourself, why wasn't I Gay Hendricks? You're going to be asking yourself, why wasn't I the full Anastasia?
Yes.
And same thing with me. They're not going to say, hey, how come you weren't Moses? I'm going to be asking myself, how come I wasn't the full me? Where was there anything left that I hadn't left, you know, unchallenged? And so I want to be like George Bernard Shaw said when he was, I think, over 100 years old. He said, I want to be fully used up when I die. You know, I want all of my creativity squoze out. And so I think it's for each of us that's full living, because in the act of just living our creativity inside out, we constantly rebirth ourselves on a daily basis. And that feels great at this stage of my life, and I'm sure it'll feel great 10 years from now, and it felt great 10 years ago. So it's something that has everlasting qualities to it.
And I want to say one more thing about genius, too, that your genius is something that you love to do and that you've always loved to do. And it's easy. So one of the reasons people discount it is like, oh, that thing that I do, that, I mean, doesn't everybody do that? Well, no, because that's your genius. And how to begin to recognize that, too, is something that when you're engaged in it, time disappears. And you feel more energized after engaging than you did at the beginning. So for me, when I'm in teaching a seminar, at the end of the day, I feel more vital and alive than I did when I started, because I am doing what I love to do. So we find that if you just focus for 10 minutes a day on opening up to what is it that I really love to do, and you start doing that, whether it's doodling or singing or creating a new soup or dancing around in the backyard, something that you love to do then begins to open up more of that wellspring of creativity, which I think is the only thing that's going to replace adrenaline. That creativity is the only thing that's juicier than adrenaline.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you guys so much for that. Oh my gosh, I'm going to re-listen to all of this because it's so phenomenal. So for everyone listening, how can they get scooped into your world? Where can they find out more about you and these amazing courses in the summer and the fall? How can they learn more about you?
Well, the best jumping off place is to go to Hendricks.com, Hendricks.com. And there you can learn about all of our offerings, our trainings, and you can also get a link over to Hearts in Harmony, which is where our e-courses are, our home study courses are. And but Hendricks.com is probably the best place to go.
We also have a channel on YouTube where you can see lots of videos. And we have another website, Foundation for Conscious Living, where you can also see more about what we're developing to bring this work to a wider audience.
I love that.
The place to start would be Hendricks.com.
Hendricks.com. Okay, phenomenal. And we will thank you for everything that you have just contributed to this conversation, just for who you are. And we'll ask the question that everyone's being asked on this show, which is, for everyone watching, what is the one thing, if they want to go out and start creating healthy, lasting love, what's the one thing they should all begin doing today to start that journey?
Take 10 seconds to love and honor and accept yourself fully as who you are, because that act will open up a space for then you to have that same kind of an appreciation of a beloved.
Wow. Not just once, but pretty regularly, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yes, whenever needed.
Whenever needed, often.
Okay, beautiful.
All
Well,
right.
that concludes our interview. Thank you guys so much for who you are and everything that you shared today. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, and thanks
Thank
for
you.
all the great questions.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay,
Bye
take
now.
care.
Bye for now.